I changed the card because you were fucking stealing my money. Yeah, man.
3, 2.
Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. Welcome to our show. We call it In a Lonely Place. And, I named this show after a Smithereens song. And if you're tuning in for the first time, I've told this story before. But Smithereens are a band from New Jersey that I came up with. They did one of their first shows at a college radio benefit with me. And, they had many hits in the 1980s. And in the early 90s, too, they had some alternative hits as well. But they were a great band from New Jersey. And they were my friends. And we were super proud of them when they were, doing all the things that they were doing. And I loved the name. I just came up with the name In a Lonely Place because, I live by myself. And all of us are doing social distancing. It's a time where you sit and you evaluate everything in your life. Sometimes you think about, like the people you love that you're not close to, that you want to be close to. And again, we know like so many of us are dealing with the fact that our incomes have changed, or people that we know that we love, their businesses, they've had to stop. It's like nothing anyone has ever expected with COVID-19. It's just, it's very surreal. And, I say it's like Diamond Dogs by Bowie, based on George Orwell's 1984, meets Rush's 2112, meets Gary Newman's first 4 albums, all based on Philip K. Dick and William Gibson's Cyberpunk that of course was Blade Runner and all that other stuff. And Running Man, any of that stuff. It's just like such a weird new world. But the good news is we're here because music's our life. We support music. It's the most important thing in the world to us. It's given us our strength. It's gotten us through the best and the worst times. And we need music more now than ever. And I know so many of you are like me. You love live music. And it's really, it's hard not to be able to see live bands, man, like we did. Feel that energy in the room. But it'll come back around. But the reason we did this and started this is because, there's so many people that are struggling because the music business is not 9 to 5. It's a different world. And we're all independent contractors, most of us, And we want to help out our fellow man and woman and the people that keep life and the machine going with music, like everybody. From the artists that are struggling right now to cancel their tours, the merch they paid for that now they can't sell, their guitar tech or whatever, it becomes a family because, if you devote your life to music, it's fucking everything, and that's what it is to me. So what I love about doing this show, and I thank Linda Perry and Kerry Brown and Chris and Steven and Aaron and Nate and everybody who's been working on the show, is that I wanted to get musicians I loved and friends on the show to talk about our lives and their the thing that drove them in music in the first place, and then 7 of their favorite albums. Because you know what? We don't want to keep it all. We all know that if you sit and watch news all day, it's like a bummer. You know what I mean? It's like, got to take a break from that shit, So that's what we're doing here. So I want to introduce you to our guest. And, I love him. I discovered him through a friend of mine who's like, I hired him to do, he was an A&R scout at Columbia. And now he manages a bunch of songwriters and producers. But that's not where he stops. Like, it's not like, oh, that's my job. His name is Renee Mata, and he does like so much for artists and friends and connecting. And just like because he loves and cares about music, it's like part of what we do. And he turned me on to the artist that I'm going to introduce you to right now. And absolutely one of my favorite artists that I've discovered, in the last couple of years. And it's Danny Rocco, and you know him from the name Des Rocs. Danny, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. After that, my tirade monologue, but like we do it, and I got to let people know what we're doing. But how are you doing, man? You're in Long Island, right?
No, I'm in the city. My family is all Long Island bound, though.
But you've lived in the city for a while now, though, right?
Yeah. The second I could get out of Long Island, I came to the city, and I've never left. So
it's like Jersey. You know what? Look, I love Jersey too. Don't get me wrong, but I lived in the city for a long time because I ended up working there. Eventually, I did move back to Jersey for a while. Now I'm in Los Angeles, but I know what you mean. Like the city, has an energy. It has an energy that is, you can't compare it to anything else.
Oh
right?
yeah, not now, but usually.
And you know what's weird? It's like the apocalypse right now. It's weird, Times Square, man. You know what it looks like? It looks like Times Square when I would get out of doing New Year's Eve at MTV, when in like 20 minutes, everyone left.
Yeah.
Like everyone was there. And then all of a sudden I'm on the street and I'm meeting my girlfriend. We're going to a hotel. And I'm like, where the fuck did everybody go? It was like craziness. So tell me how you're dealing with the pandemic, Danny. How's it? Because you know what? Your momentum, has been incredible. The Stones had you open for them in Philadelphia at a stadium. And Jagger went on stage and said how much he loved that you were opening for him that night. Muse brought you all over Europe as their direct support. I mean, that stuff is just incredible. And at the time, as you know, you were all DIY, which was so awesome. You know what I mean? And so let's talk. Why don't we backtrack? You had a band for a while, right? Before you did Des Rocs. So tell me about your childhood. What drove you with music?
Well, I've been in a band ever since I was 13 years old. I was a kid. I was in probably 8th grade, and a friend asked me to go see a show in Mineola, Long Island. So we drove to this little club in Mineola. We walked down the stairs, and it was like a packed room of 120 people, and there was a ska band on stage, and they were going crazy, and the kids were going crazy, and then the singer jumped off stage, and he ran to a merch table, and he was selling DVDs and T-shirts, and I just looked at my friend, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is this world? And it just changed my life that night, and I was like, this energy, this art, this hustle, I was like, I am in love with this, and I fell in love, and I've been in love ever since, and I've been in bands ever since, just playing to nobody, and rec centers and halls in Kentucky and anyone who would have me play.
It's funny. Rec centers were the first things, I was like the singer in a band called Thunderhead. Yeah, that was our name. When I was 14 and 15, we played all the teen dances and obviously the teen center, and the junior highs, because, that's how old we were. And I just, it's one of those things, man, you would play wherever you could go. Yeah. But it's amazing because I got to say that when I heard your single that's out right now called Used to the Darkness, I was really blown away by it. I loved every aspect of the way you sang because it had this haunting Roy Orbison like Fat Stomach. There was something about it that was just so cool. And also the production on the song that you wrote. Like it was the things you were using. You were using guitars, you were using synths, but it was almost like it was so punchy and real drums, and it had everything from industrial to classic. It was just, I love that. Yeah. And so many of your songs are, going different directions. But so when you and I met, we talked about your favorite music and we became friends. And it was amazing because we're going to go there for the last half hour, your favorite albums. But the things that you drew inspiration from were really cool. And I love that. And I love that, if you're playing to a room of 20 or a stadium of 150,000, you still roll into the room with that fucking energy. Like, hey, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to give you all I got. Right. Yeah. So that was so one of the things that I thought was so great. And I remember your first show in LA at Moroccan Lounge. And I'm there with Allison Hagendorf, Allie, one of my best friends. And we watched that show. And, Allie's the, global head of rock for Spotify. And we looked at each other and went, fuck yeah, this is the real thing. This is what it's about. All right, so I've talked enough right there. Tell me about how you got inspired by everything from Queen and Freddie Mercury to Springsteen and Roy Orbison. I want to hear, because I love that I'm sure you liked a lot of different things growing up, but I mean, you found this sound of your own.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm like a pretty dramatic and emotional person, and I love things that speak to that energy. I love big feelings. And also on that Bruce Springsteen tip, I love community and I love roots and I love speaking your truth and making music for everybody. So I was growing up. My dad always had these Queen and AC/DC tapes that he would put in this like shitty old 1984 Mercedes we had that was like a boat. And we would just drive around. I was always listening to it, always the same tapes over and over and over. He probably had 10 tapes total. I wasn't exposed to a lot of music. And I just fell in love, and it was so ingrained in my DNA that when I burst out of that little bubble out of the passenger seat of my dad's Mercedes, it kind of bled into everything else, everything modern, all the stuff that was popping at that time when I was in high school.
But what did you love then? Because I want to hear about that stuff too.
Yeah, I fell in love with bands like Brand New.
They're great.
I fell in love with the Killers. Oh, I know you have a rich history of in many different ways.
Yeah.
And bands that were really a part of scenes, but doing something very different within those scenes. And I always respected those bands and loved those bands the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, man. It's amazing. And it's funny because we were talking about Brand New recently as well. And, I love those guys. I saw them do Your Favorite Weapon, like those early shows. And, and then Jesse would come up, his dad too, to K-Rock to be on the air with me. And then Jesse just got didn't want to do any interviews or do any press or do any promotion for his records. Okay, it was kind of disappointing. I love them. And I love those albums. But when The Devil and God, that album came out, there was a song called Millstone on it. And I was playing it on Sirius XM. I had a show before, it was on the channel left of center, before it became Sirius XMU, before they merged the two stations. So I was doing a show called Matt Pinfield Plays Whatever the Fuck He Wants. And Howard loved the name. You know what I mean? So it was I just go on. And Bob Lefsetz, this guy who writes this industry letter, can be very scathing and, also very supportive, said the nicest thing ever. He said, he goes, Matt Pinfield was fine on MTV. I was more than fine, in my opinion. But, he was there's that little, I don't know if I was really into him, if he said something about being one-dimensional. And I was like, yeah, whatever. He goes, but I listened to him last night, and it was like driving home with your best friend, talking about music. And you know what song he talked about? Brand New's Millstone. And I loved that fucking song so much. I played it back to back with an acoustic version of Boys Don't Cry by The Cure, or whatever, or Elvis Costello, something great. But the point is that Brand New were such a great band, but it's weird how they kind of went off in this direction. They're very proud Long Island band, Taking Back Sunday and all those bands at that time. I love those records. You know what I mean? Talk to me about that. Thursday Air from my hometown, Gaslight Anthem from New Brunswick, all those bands.
Yeah, these are bands that really represented the metropolitan area so hard and spoke to those people so locally. And I remember just seeing these bands in places like rec centers, which are as we were talking, the biggest patron saints of arts, I think, out of any other institution out there.
Rec centers, those basement shows, right? The basement shows were great too, right?
Yeah, and it was such an energy, such a scene. But I never really made music like that. I was always, again, I had this different kind of inspiration I was drawing from. So I would always be playing these shows with all these kind of emo bands and Brand New knockoffs. And I would be making music that I wanted to play to 80,000 people, and I was looking like an idiot when I was 15 years old. But I just kept making that same music, and eventually people started to like it. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me. I know you're following because you can actually trace your following is worldwide. I mean, and there's areas like South America and the UK where you've got an insane following.
Thanks.
And do that without a record label, which is...
I'm unsigned, yeah. Yeah.
And, songs like Out of My Mind, which is another one that I absolutely love. The songs they're so cool. And then there was also Let Me Live, Let Me Die, which, it was licensed for a lot of stuff, right? The thing that was keeping you alive, and, people know this as musicians, was, sync rights where they used them for TV shows, commercials, and Used to the Darkness and Let Me Live, Let Me Die. I've been licensed quite a bit, right? I mean, it's
they've got a lot of love, yeah. And I think there's a stigma about that with bands, but now everyone kind of embraces it because
well, there was a time when everybody was so fucking up in arms that they used the Beatles Revolution for a sneaker ad, and now it's the artists need to get paid. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's a different world, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, when I'm watching like Peaky Blinders, and they're like playing, you know, like Black Keys or Dan Auerbach, you know, or Jack White or whatever. I love hearing this stuff. And I'm always happy when I hear a band I love song because I know they're getting paid for it and they deserve to be.
Right? Yeah, man. I mean, I think I'm like the least cool person I know, and I hate when artists try and play it cool. You know, it's like when I saw my song in a commercial for like Borderlands 3, the video game, it got me so pumped up. I was so excited. It was a bunch of robots and aliens shooting and killing each other, and it was like the craziest thing I ever saw. And there was this record that was birthed out of my soul and my hands, blasting in the background. I was like, this is so epic. I loved it. You know what I mean? It's like I don't give a shit about that kind of thing. I love it.
You know what I love about that is, you know, I love that, you know, and this is the thing that's really interesting. And I love that you're like, and I'm the same way, right? You know what? And you know, I've done, you know, metal, alternative, everything. Country, hip hop. You know what? Whatever I fucking love is cool.
Amen.
It is. You know what I mean? Because whatever it is, it's personal regardless. But at the same time, I love that you make no apologies for wanting to fucking play the stadiums and have your music heard by as many people as possible. Because that's the guys you idolize. The people you love we're all about performance.
Yeah.
Huge, you know? And I think that's a beautiful thing. I love it. And and honestly, you know, I know that some people reply like, holy shit, because you know, you've been in a club, man, and you would play like you were playing for 200,000 people.
Nice.
I thought it was great. And I've seen you win over crowds who didn't know who you are. So talk to me about, you know, the Muse experience, playing with Muse, like you know, and doing Europe. Because
man,
you're playing, what were those shows? 150,000 people or something, or you know, more?
It was nuts. It was crazy. It was arenas all over Europe, and it was nuts because that's a band that I grew up on. You know, I loved, like we were talking about all those influences, and then along came this band. I just saw the music video on MTV. I think it was for Time Is Running Out, and it just blew my mind because it was so unapologetically big and dramatic and emotional, and I connected with it immediately, and I fell in love with that record, Absolution. And it was one of my favorite records. It still is one of my favorite records to this day, as we'll talk about in a little bit. And they just asked me to join the tour. I'm completely unsigned. You know, I'm doing everything on my own, making these records and everything else. And they just said, hey, we like the music. You want to open for us on the European leg? And just like blew my mind. It's a weird new world we live in, but it's better for people like me, you know?
Yeah, and how about the Stones? Like Jagger went on stage.
Crazy.
At RFK or JFK? It's RFK, right? Or JFK? I can't remember. You know what? One used to be in DC. You know, I've been on. You know, anyway, it's really interesting too because in Philly, I saw the Stones at the same stadium in 1978 when I was a kid. Because my high school girlfriend loved the Stones. So did I. I mean, you know, and so we went there, and it was Stones with Peter Tosh and Foreigner opening up.
Foreigner, cool.
You know what? I never did say this to them because, you know, I did the last interview with them with all the members, like, and it's the first in 35 years and the last since then, where you know, they asked me to do the interview in 2004 for a bigger bang. So I sat there with all the Stones, and I'm sure they're just the coolest guys and the nicest people. It's so mind blowing. No cheatedness, like, right? I mean, so tell me about your experience with them.
It was surreal. So we pull up to this giant stadium in this like 1989 Volkswagen van with the wrong color door on it because it got ripped off the week before when we were opening it into traffic and a bicycle took it right off. So we pull up to this thing. The security guards are just like, they think we're like here to like, it couldn't be less.
The place and just fucking.
Yeah, they're like, we just pulled up to this giant place. We're like, hey, I'm here to play the show. And they're like, okay, yeah, right. We have to like show them all these papers, the bomb-sniffing dogs, all this shit. We just pull up. We drive this little thing into the stadium, which basically had like the cucaracha horn. It was like, ba, 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 ba. You know, we're pulling in. And it was just a really crazy day of me trying to remain calm and cool and collected in front of the band and the crew. But on the inside being like, holy shit. Holy shit. Yeah.
That's amazing, you know? And I watched the footage of the performance, and it was great.
Thank
And
you.
I love that Jagger went out on stage and said, how great was Des Rocs tonight? Like, he gave you love. Like, that was just amazing. I mean, I've seen him a ton of times. I've never seen him do that for the opening act. I know he probably did it for Skinner once, like back in the day. But like, that's pretty amazing. It's just a great thing. It's got to be an incredible experience for you. So we are gonna soon get into your favorite albums, but let's talk about the fact that, Danny, I mean, it's like everything else in life right now. We're going through this pandemic, man, and all this momentum is building with all of us, like in different things, and even like for an old fucker like me, I mean, there's some great stuff happening, and I'm always getting to do things that I love, but there were a lot of things that were planned, and everybody had to put their plans on hold. And even more deeply, there's the issue that it plays with your mental health, because you love your families, you love your friends, you're worried about the fact that I've lost 3 friends already, and I got a call from my one daughter like a couple hours ago, and she's like, Dad, I don't feel good in New York. And I was like, Jessica, she
Jeez.
I won't lie, it got me really scared, man, but I'm just going to stay strong for my daughter. But I worry about everyone, my friends. I've already lost 3 friends that I was close to. So at the same time, I know that everybody that we love and care about would want us to fight through, you know what I mean? And we have to, because what choice do we have?
Right.
Yeah. And we want to see the other side of this, because we want to get back to live music. It's just the best thing in the world. And so Danny, how does that affect you right now? Like, with you, like, during this period, are you going to just like release some new songs and kind of hang in there with everything? Because you did a lot of stuff, like you were like creating from the bottom up anyway at that point. But so tell me about like how that's affected you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I pulled down pretty much the vast majority of my upcoming shows. They're all canceled, and I'm not optimistic about when I'll be back on a stage anytime soon. But for me, it's not about extinguishing that kind of manic energy I have about touring and everything else, but just focusing it somewhere else. So I'm just back in the same bedroom that a lot of my records are made in anyway, literally just sitting here with a microphone and just a guitar. And this is what Use the Darkness was made on. It's like these 2 things right here, and then a computer, and like, this is how I work. I can get pretty hermit-like, or I can be the opposite and be totally extroverted to 80,000 people with the Stones, So I'm just going back into hermit mode and really focusing on my art,
Yeah, I'm glad that you are, Danny, and I love that, man. I just love your positivity, because, man, that's always kind of how I've rolled. Like, I love people that are positive, and find something and a direction to do, just to bring something. Sorry about that. I just had to put my soda down. But I love the fact that you've been working on so many different songs. You even wrote a song that you really wanted, because I love that you're shooting big for like the next James Bond movie, right? Which,
yeah. I wrote a song. They announced the temporary title was 25 Lives. So I immediately just locked myself in my apartment for 48 hours, and I wrote an entire epic song called 25 Lives. I still think it's one of the things I'm most proud about to this day. And then I had my manager at the time figure out a way to pitch it to the Bond people, and we got some like really nasty letter back that says, "We just want to let you know we do not accept song submissions. We did not listen to it. Please do not contact us again." And hey, I'm optimistic. I think it's the best goddamn Bond theme song they'll ever have. So they should.
Yeah, you know what, man? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's funny. There's been some great ones, right? I mean, like, obviously, Live and Let Die. It's interesting though. I'll tell you this story that that Paul McCartney told me. He said that he couldn't really believe that, when he finished Live and Let Die, which sounds epic because it's got, it just like it takes off, and like it builds this incredible tension. McCartney told me that when they brought it to the Broccoli family, the people from Bond, they literally said to him, and I think they met him on a beach or some crazy shit, maybe in Jamaica, and they said, "Oh yeah, is that the demo?" And they go, "No, that's the fucking song." I mean, does Live and Let Die sound like a demo to you? Like, not at all. I mean, it's
100-piece orchestra demo. That's expensive.
Yeah, and I love fucking the Chris Cornell song, You Know My Name. I mean, there's many, you know what I mean? I just, I love the idea. Fuck, I love Goldfinger by Shirley Bassey and You Only Live Twice by Nancy Sinatra. I mean, I love those songs. I just, there's something about, that franchise and those songs that's really cool. So you know what? Maybe, just, but that's really funny. Like, I mean, I can't believe that they're like, don't bother us. Fuck you. We don't care. We're not listening to it.
Well, shoot for the stars and you're going to get the moon, maybe. I didn't.
Yeah. You should. And you know what? Who's to say that you won't get that down the line? Anything can happen. And that's the beauty of life, right? Like, John Lennon said, life's what happens when you're busy making plans. We figured that one out, didn't we? You know what I mean? Like, anyway.
Love that.
A little dehydrated. I'm ready, Danny, to literally start talking about your records that you
again.
It's unbelievable. What are they doing here? Hold on. Something else is going on. Yeah, I'm getting a text from the crew. So let's talk about the records. You picked 7 albums. It's one of the things we do with the show In a Lonely Place. I love to hear about your favorite records, the ones that shaped you, the ones that got you through, and really defined you as a human being and as a musician. So we'll start with the one we were talking about before, an album I love, Absolution by Muse. Mm-hmm. I mean, for you loving that, growing up and seeing the Time Is Running Out video or Stockholm Syndrome or, songs on that record, like, a bunch of great ones. And, tell me why that, I know why by knowing you because of how you see them. And they are a band, like I said, that, I introduced on stage at Madison Square Garden. I introduced them at Prudential Center in Jersey. And fucking the shows are epic. So tell me about when you told me how you first heard it, but tell me about why you love the album overall.
I love the album because it's a journey and there's so much dynamic that I feel like I'm listening to like a modern Beethoven, and it incorporates so many different elements so well. And to me, that's what I'm always striving to do in my productions, blend together so many different worlds and create something new out of it, and I discovered these records like in a vacuum. Like I listened to this whole record. I didn't know any other Muse records. I didn't even know there were 2 Muse records before it, So I just enjoyed it as is. And I didn't have like a critical lens of like, oh, how is this the progression of the sound now that it's album 3?
The joke is an Origin of Symmetry, right? You didn't you're just like, I'm playing this on its own.
Yeah, I didn't know about those records. I was just enjoying it for what it was. And I had this sort of innocence that I think you only get when you're like a teenager, that I was able to enjoy it and let it soak in so much more because I had no critical brain at that time, So I just took it in and it has a special place in my soul forever.
Yeah, it's such a great record, man. And then Black Holes and Revelations came out after, which I also love.
Unreal.
So much. They were on such a roll. It was like, And the idea that, like, there's no question that Matt Bellamy is one of the most talented people in music. He's just
unreal.
Insane how great he is,
And he's the nicest guy in the world.
He really is. He's a sweetheart, man. He is. Those guys are so cool.
So cool.
And, and they played every large stage in the world. And they're still just great guys. And, Matt Bellamy's dad was in a band, called the Tornadoes that had the first #1 record in America ever by a British band called Telstar.
Kidding.
Instrumental. And when I found that out, I remember telling Jonah Hill was doing an interview with me and he goes, yeah, I like this band. I've been listening to this weird, like cool instrumental band called the Tornadoes. I found this thing. I go, do you know that's Matt Bellamy's father? He goes, are you fucking kidding me? So it was really cool. They did this song about the satellite in the sky. And it's the first, before the Beatles, the first #1 record. And his dad, he told him some great stories about like how Joe Meek was this really unbelievably famous producer who made all the independent records in his house, but he lost his mind from doing speed. But he was also paranoid because literally they were trying to fuck him over like a lot of the industry people. But a lot of it he imagined. And he was a guy who like came up with stamping your feet in the bathroom and all that shit that Dave Clark 5 did. Joe Meek came up with all that stuff and did the Tornadoes record. But there's a great cartoon that's out there in the series that's on YouTube with me telling stories for 2 minutes each. And it's called Rock Stories with Matt Pinfield. And there's the story that Matt Bellamy told me about Joe Meek getting pissed at those guys when they not liking the way, and as a producer, they're playing. And he threw the fucking mixing board, like literally down the stairs and almost killed his father. Like he was just lost his fucking mind. That's a great story. But anyway, that's something you should check out and look into.
I got some homework to do, yeah.
Here we go. So let's talk about Roy Orbison, man. And because what an incredible voice. Mm-hmm. Loved by so many people. And you picked Black and White Night as the album that you was one of your favorites. Tell us why.
I mean, it's just such a statement of an album. It's so different than anything that came before or after it. And it has so many incredible features on it too, where it's just this like epic journey of Roy Orbison's greatest work and then the people singing with him who are so inspired by that work. And and it's just without a doubt one of my top. And you'll see a lot of these albums that are my favorites are live albums because I listen to so many live albums because that's where I live and that's what I dream about.
Yeah, and that's really cool because it's interesting because there have been live albums in history that are so important and other ones where it just doesn't hit the level. And some that are phenomenal, and as you grow up with records that you love, and sometimes if you listen to the live album first, it's like when you hear the studio one, you're comparing and you're like, it becomes ingrained into your brain. So it's not right unless you hear it that way.
I mean, like bands I tour with and I hear the same songs every single night and I don't listen to the recorded versions. It's really weird when I actually end up hearing the record. It's just like, oh, that's how they recorded that? It's way better live,
Yeah, I mean, you toured with Glorious Sons, Grandsons, so many great people. Mm-hmm. What a great tour that was with you guys and Glorious Sons, that last tour you did.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I love that show that night because as different as you guys are, both of you are great. And it was, it's one of the last shows I saw that I loved. I mean, maybe I saw a couple things after that, but
thanks, man.
It was like right before all the shit went down,
I love that venue too. That was really cool. Yeah.
But El Rey, right?
Yeah, I've never been. It's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun night, man. I'm glad we did that. That I came down. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. You and then the last show I saw, I think it was Mondo Cosmo Josh, man. He played at the hi-hat. And you know what? It was late. I was tired of shit. I still went. And I'm so glad I did, But anyway, so let's talk about the Strokes. You picked Room on Fire as your favorite Strokes album. You're a New York guy. Obviously we love the New York Strokes thing and what an era that was of all the shit that was going on down there. Like everybody, yes, Bravery. Of course, it meant everything everywhere else too, like Hives, White Stripes, Killers. I mean, it's just like it was a great, exciting time where people were kind of bringing in that old style of garage rock and working on it. So explain to me why you love that record.
Yeah, I think it really goes back to identity. I was 30 minutes outside the city for most of my life, and I was swirling around in this kind of Long Island scene and going to all these shows. But just 30 minutes west was this whole crazy thing that was going on with New York music. It was so different. It was
Arlene's Grocery and everywhere, like all those shows, you right?
So different. And I kind of had this fantasy of growing up and escaping out of Long Island, which is a 30-minute train ride away, and just living in this place. And by the time I got to New York City, it was just way before my time, and it was long gone. And I came to a place that just had the shells of these bands and nothing quite like it. But they're such New Yorkers, and they represent the city in a way that I'm just always in awe of.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I love them, and that's a great record too. And they're awesome guys, in every way. Nick Valencia tells a story about I know he's going to be on the show soon, but it's funny because he said he met me when he was 14 on the street, and he said, "Man, you were so nice to me. You talked to me like for 10 minutes." And then he met me again at a bar, and I was shit-faced, like when he was underage. But he was like, he was probably 19. And then 5 years later, like the biggest band in New York City. And I love those guys. And I just think they're just such a great band because they capture that spirit of what downtown New York City, Lower East Side is about. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget when they played I used to host all the Joey Ramone cancer benefits every year when his mom Charlotte was still alive. And then some of the year I do it with like, Steve Craig or a little Steven. We'd host these at Irving Plaza, and Strokes come out. All right. And it was like someone lit a fire. They did It's Not My Place in the 9 to 5 world. And it was like, boom. It was like, you knew why they were great. It was like the energy, the vibe, it took everything up like 10 notches, man. It was so good.
I think what I love so much about them is that you can't really tell somebody why the Strokes are one of the greatest bands of all time. You can't put it into words. It's so much X factor, and I think that's what makes a great artist.
Yeah, and speaking of Long Island, we talked about it earlier. I love the second Brand New record. I mean, all of those records are great. Your Favorite Weapon. But this record, man, like it took them all. I mean, those first 3 albums always changed.
Yes.
But Deja Entendu is like tell me why you love that. Like Sick Transit Gloria. The shit on that record was so good. Yeah. And tell me why you love it.
Those records are bangers, man. Just like straight up, hard on your sleeve bangers. And they were lumped into this whole scene that they were so much bigger and better than, and they stuck out as true artists at that time. True artists making art, challenging themselves, pushing what they were capable of doing. And it was just this like statement of maturity that I was just like, it really like made me think about like my own songwriting and what I needed to do to really create art that was worth putting out.
Yeah. And you did, which is great. You know what I mean? But yeah, those guys are great. I'm sorry there's, like I said, we talked about it earlier. Loved them. And Jesse was always so cool. And then just like I guess I got frustrated with the music business, and I understand that, but man, no matter what those pitfalls are, there's nothing better in the world than being in music and around music, no matter what. You know what I mean? But everybody deals with things in their own way, and I certainly don't judge him on that,
Yeah.
Now, your next album is Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, which is such a great record and so many singles on it. And I think of you, I think about the young artists that are around. And I remember on that London Calling when he did Hyde Park, the DVD, when, it was really cool that it was Gaslight Anthem and Brian Fallon got to get up and sing with his hero, do No Surrender, which is how we feel now. No surrender, man. We are not surrendering. We're going to fight this thing. But I love Bruce, and even this record, because right before it, he did Nebraska, right? So he was like, he did The River, and then he's like, I got this record I recorded in my bedroom or whatever, or in my house. Stark, the stories. And then Born in the USA, he came out swinging, and it had hit after hit after hit after hit. When I'm Going Down, I'm on Fire. Dancing in the Dark is a classic.
Classic.
I love that record, and so I want to know why you love it.
Man, I think like just the cover art. Like I just saw it and I was like, what the fuck is this? And like, I think my parents had the CD and I remember just blasting that riff over and over again. It spoke to a certain sense of glory in music that was made for big rooms and to unite people that just hit something so deep inside me. And I just remember like, I didn't know really who Bruce Springsteen was as a kid. I just knew that it was big music. I didn't know what the shows looked like. But I remember just having these songs that were just enormous. And I wanted to have songs that felt that big. Even when they were low tempo, even like a Dancing in the Dark, like a slow.
Yeah, I'm on Fire still feels awesome. Like, it's a beautiful song, man. It's, Bruce is always, he's certainly one of the things that's the pride of my home state, New Jersey, originally. And man, he's been really good to me, man. He, when I went to work at MTV, he called my bosses over there and said, "Yeah, man, what? That guy Matt Pinfield, he's not a corporate guy. You guys make sure you look out for him." It blew my mind that he called, and twice he went to my bosses because I was on the radio on the Jersey Shore, so I was a part of that thing, and he would come to our Christmas shows, and he and I had a conversation about John Spencer Blues Explosion and like, the Music Machine. I mean, Bruce knows this shit about music, and he's a lovely human being, man. He's just so cool, and that was one of the nicest things anybody ever did for me, because you couldn't pay Bruce to like endorse you. Like, he's got to feel it, you know. But I love that record, and you know, and I've always like, we needed The Rising when it came out. I was working at Columbia Records, and I hadn't seen him other than live in 7 years, and I'm a VP, so I'm allowed to go up and like listen to the album with him there. He comes out afterwards. We got the lyric sheets. And then they're like kind of parading us by him. And he goes, Matt, what's up, man? And I go, Bruce, you know, I've been waiting 7 years to thank you for the 2 times you endorsed me. And he goes, Matt, hey, man, no problem. What do you think of the album? Like, I love it. Like, he just like totally throws it off. It was genius. I love him, man. You know, he, you know, those records, just how deep and soulful everything he's done is you know, I just, you know, I love him. And I'm glad that you do too. Like, I see all these artists in your performance.
Oh, thanks.
Like, I know, I mean, and I love that you say, fuck this. I make no apology for wanting to fucking sing to everyone and like get my songs to everybody I know. And I think that's fantastic, man.
I mean, dude, it's fractured times, and art is one of the few things that have united all people of all nationalities and of all languages forever. There's very few other things that have ever done that. And I think that got really lost when people wanted to make music just to cater to certain people, you know, and say, I'm making music, I'm synth pop, I'm cool, I'm looking down at my shoes, I'm playing a club in Brooklyn. This is cool because it's what somebody else does. And I never want to play by those rules, ever.
Yeah, man, I love that you want to be an individual and do what you do. Yet you incorporate what feels like industrial, metal, soul. You know what I mean? Like, I love it, man. I mean, it's got everything going on. Now, your next record is an incredible one. Speaking of live albums, you know, I saw this band in 1976 in New York City at the Beacon Theater, and it changed my life. It was the Night at the Opera tour, and fucking, I left that when I was 12 years old, and we got stuck at Port Authority, laying on the ground. There was a snowstorm because we missed the last bus, me and my brother and my sister-in-law, but it was worth every second to see Queen in a theater. So you love Live at Wembley, which is an incredible album. Tell me why you love that.
Oh man, I think it's just the pinnacle of everything that we've been talking about for the last little bit. It is the biggest, best, strangest music ever. Not one of those songs are made because they're trying to please somebody or sound like somebody or fit into something. They did them. They were without apology, doing their own thing and doing it on the biggest scale. And there's no greater example of how big that can be when it's done with the best people.
Yeah, and, you know, let me tell you, that band, I mean, and that Live at Wembley is amazing. So that's why, you know, I think about, like, I talked to Taylor Hawkins, who's one of the biggest Queen fans. And of course, you know, Taylor and Dave Grohl, you know, inducted Queen into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they were also at Rock Honors, which was one of the things I was working on with VH1. And that was the first thing me and Taylor Hawkins bonded over, was Queen, because, you know, we love that so much. And we think about it, and, you know, they were so unique, all 4 of those guys. Mm-hmm. And what was so crazy is they all could write great songs. Only John Deacon didn't sing, right? But Freddie was truly one of the greatest frontmen ever. Yeah. Like, he just didn't give a fuck. And when I was a kid and I saw him walk out on stage and sing Now I'm Here, and then go into, you know, like all those songs, you know, from Sheer Heart Attack and Night at the Opera, Queen 1 and 2, I was just blown away. And I was in the nosebleeds, you know, I was like probably in the next to last row. But they were truly a magical and unique band, you know, and, you know, I'm glad you love them. I love that you you love and appreciate. And, you know, for me, it's whatever really matters to you. Like, I feel that everybody takes their own journey and just loves certain records. And that is about who they are, you know, and it represents them. But I love that you love that record, because Queen at Wembley, I think of Queen at Wembley as the quintessential Wembley show. Oh. You know what I mean? Like, that's, you know, Wembley, it's like, I think of them, you know, and then Live Aid, you know, I mean, it was amazing, you know, what they went through and were there for. And, you know, it's, Matt Sorum was on here the other day from Guns N' Roses and Velvet Revolver and the Cult, and was talking about, being there at the Freddie Mercury tribute show and just the energy that was happening there at the time. And I got to write the liner notes to the Queen box set, The Crown Jewels, when the CDs came out in 1997. Brian May hired me to write those liner notes, and what an honor that was for me. I told it. Well, so anyway, I wish you, Danny, that you'd gotten to see Freddie, but at least there's a lot of stuff available now to watch.
I watch it religiously. Yeah, I watch so much.
Now, all right, the next record that we're talking about, obviously, is your last record. And man, I know how much you love him, and I think it's really cool that you do. Because at the end of the day, it's like John Lennon said, before Elvis, there was nothing. I mean, there's certainly unbelievable black blues music, and there was lots of stuff. I mean, I love Sinatra, but Elvis, man, he just opened the door for what youth and what young people could do. I mean, certainly we know, like, yes, he was definitely being inspired by all the black rock and roll greats, the Little Richards of the world, and I mean, Fats Domino, Little Richard, and then you think about guys that were like hillbillies, like Jerry Lee Lewis, but they were fucking amazing. You know what I mean? And so tell me about why you picked this Elvis record, because I know you and I have talked about the 68 comeback special and how great that was and important, but tell me why you picked this record. All right.
I think this record is so stunning to me because there's a giant orchestra behind him. It's like this next phase of Elvis where all the traditional rock and rollers kind of check out on Elvis. And they're like, oh, that's when Elvis wasn't cool anymore. That's where Elvis gets the most exciting for me because it is so dramatic. It is the greatest entertainer of all time, struggling with so many personal demons.
Yeah, man. I mean, like he was obviously like before, people really didn't understand what prescription pill addiction was. Yeah. I mean, when all these people that we love died, like Keith Moon, and I mean, nobody knew, like nobody really understood. And, people looked at alcoholism like, oh, that's Skid Row. No, it wasn't, and everybody played so hard in those days. The people, so.
Yeah.
And Elvis, like it was, I think about it, I talked to Jerry Schilling, I became friends with him, and, he was one of Elvis's guys all the way through. And he's a really beautiful guy, a real gentleman, man. He's a great guy. He lives out here. We talk about that. We talk about the fact that it was like, look, people, I get mad when people talk shit about Elvis because, I like to make fun of that rough period he had. I'm like, man, you know what? He was the first one to go through it. And he also had, when you have so many yes men around you at times, because everybody just doesn't know what you're going to do. And at some point, I'm thinking that nobody knew how, he was going to react. And so people, they wanted to keep, it's like that whole thing. They want to keep the train going.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose their jobs. They want to keep it going. So it's like, oh, you want to do that? You do that. And it was, obviously very unhealthy for him. But the guy was a badass and a machine. And you know what? If you, I'm glad you love that later era too, because I know he was struggling through it. And sometimes it had made me sad to see that part of him. But you look at that stuff from 56 or any of that other stuff, man, he would go on stage, man, and he just set the world on fire.
Yeah.
And the girls, like that one picture of him French kissing that girl like 56 backstage is like fucking so badass because it's like, the guy had a pulse. He definitely. No, but he was one of the greatest vocalists of all time. And and you know what? He it was a sad loss, man. That year we lost him and Mark Bolan of T-Rex right after that. And it was like, it was just right now we're losing people and it's rough. And but you know what? Music keeps us getting through it, Danny. And so I mean, is there something you want to say to young artists? Because Danny, you've done things really. You've been doing things your way, which is like, and proving to people that you can actually get things done. Your singles climbing up the charts. You've been touring endlessly because you love to play live. Like literally, Let me just ask you, like, when this ends, like this whole pandemic thing, are you like are you ready to just go on the road and like use that as inspiration to do your best live shows ever? Tell me.
Oh, big time. Like, I think any artist that's not taking this time to plan the next stage of their show, like, there's no excuse when those lights come back on in those clubs. Like, you better be bringing some new shit. Like, you had some time to work it out, you know? And I think I'm just that first show back, like, I'm going to fall off the stage in the first 10 seconds. I'm going to be going wild. You know, it's like, it's going to be
run the crowd and jump off the stage.
It's going to be like a musical conjugal visit. You know, it's going to be fucking crazy, you know? So,
yeah, and I just, you know, I never took any of it for granted, but I never expected this to happen.
No one.
So, but at the same time, you know, that's what we're doing here. We're supporting each other. We're supporting our family, our friends, musicians, everybody in the music, and you know, and truly everybody in the world, because everybody's going through it at the same time.
Right.
And that's the thing that we always remember. Like, you know, hey, you know, I might be down today, or I might, you know, say, fuck, man. I mean, you know, like, what's going on with the finances or whatever. And we all just have to be strong for each other through this shit. Like the best we can do. You know, it's like I said, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. At the same time, I think that when we do come out of it, we'll have like another really strong inner strength, man. Like, and this other thing that we survived. And I really hope we don't lose any more of our loved ones. You know, I mean, I just, you know, pray for everybody out there that they're staying safe, healthy, and doing what they can do, the best that they can do to get through these times. But Danny, let me tell you something, man. I asked you to come on because, you know, I love your music. I love you live.
Thanks, man.
You're my friend, man. You're like, you know, because I was another champion of your stuff. And yeah, I can't wait till I can see you on a stage again, man.
I can't wait till I can see you again, man. We got to go to a diner. We're overdue.
Yeah, man, we have that thing where you and I always go to the diners in Hollywood and LA when you're out here, and then we compare them to the diners in Jersey and New York, right? You know, here. You know what's really sad? I'm just going to finish with this. Like, the thing that like really bummed me out is that Swingers is closing down, like, permanently. And I love that diner and the people. You know, it was all like these cool tattooed, you know, like waitresses, and the jukebox was great, like the one-on-one coffee shop that you and I have gone to. And the food was awesome. And it just had a vibe. So when they put in the newspaper that it was closing down, I'm like, just another effect of how this is really changing people's lives. And, you know, we just got to navigate through it, man, you know. Anyway, so I loved having you on today, Danny.
Thanks for having
me. Thank you so much for taking the time, brother.
Thanks. Pleasure.
And, you know, I will see you on the other side of this shit. You know it, all right?
I know we will.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's Danny Rocco, Des Rocs. Go to what, you know, I don't know how you know, if you listen to Spotify, Apple Music, however you love your music to be delivered, go check it out right now and listen to Used to the Darkness and Out of My Mind, and check all the stuff out. Because Danny's always releasing and creating stuff and EPs, and a perfect example of the DIY thing and the power in your own hands that can actually still help you get to your dream. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, Danny, thanks again, brother.
Thanks.
Love seeing you, man. This is called In a Lonely Place. I'll be back with you tomorrow with my friend Mark Foster from Foster to the People. In the meantime, I want to thank Linda Perry, Carrie Brown, Chris Trevero, the rest of our crew out there, Nate, Steven, Aaron, and everybody who makes this possible. All my friends who are coming to do this show. You guys have a great night. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Keep the music in your heart.